Grand Risings. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning. And I came out on the lake today because I really want to talk about two things. I want to talk about the age of Pisces, and I want to talk about stellar consciousness. A lot of people don't understand the how consciousness cycles, how it works. And so I'm going to be explaining that today, as well as how a star can influence our thought process as humans. So those two things go together because we know that the zodiac of Pisces has been ruling for 2,000 years. What does that mean? What does that say about our consciousness and how it works? So what I will tell you is that the zodiac is a dictation of the collective consciousness. It tells us how to think. It tells us what particular concepts that we are going to be focusing on for a number of years, okay? Pisces is also the last zodiac sign. So that zodiac sign ends the great year. What is consciousness and how do we describe or define consciousness? It's basically an awareness, right? So just think of it this way. If we were all in darkness, right? We were all in ignorance. We didn't know anything. And suddenly there was some sort of awareness. Plato covers this in his allegory of a cave, so that you can only be aware of what you see, right? So consciousness is another concept of seeing, but it's seeing in the mind. It's seeing inside of your ideas. It's being able to grasp different levels of awareness. If we could break consciousness down, that's what we could say. It is a filter, okay, to help us understand different levels of awareness, right? So once we have the light on our feet, we could see the dirt. But before that, we may have thought it was something just hard. We didn't really know what it was. But now that the light is on, we can see, oh, this is dirt. And then we can see the color of the dirt next, right? And then we could see the rocks in the dirt next, right? Then we could see the bugs in the dirt next, right? So for every single level of consciousness, we are able to see different things. That's why when you're born as a child, you can see different constructs, okay? So a dog, that once you understand what that construct is, every four-legged animal looks like a dog, until you realize that, oh, cats have four legs, right? So consciousness in a nutshell helps us gain levels of awareness over time. And so that light that shines upon us and gives us that awareness, that is starlight, sunlight. And all of the stars that are around us in our galaxy emit a certain frequency of light. That frequency of light gives us a certain awareness, and it blocks us off as well from other parts of our awareness, okay? So when you're looking at Pisces and you're looking at Gemini, and you're looking at all of these constellations. They represent an emission of light, a certain frequency that allows us to have a certain awareness for a certain period of time. Our sun, of course, is the brightest star inside of our solar system, and it emits the most light. So therefore, the sun is our friend, right? The sun gives us most of our consciousness. And that's why we have also in our zodiac, each person, along with the collective consciousness, has a specific sun sign that they were born under that rules their awareness, okay? I just so happen to be born under the zodiac sign of Pisces. So that's what rules my awareness. So I understand about the age of Pisces and how those stars in that constellation rule over what we are going to be aware of. So let's talk about that for a minute. And the stellar consciousness is the light, okay? So the stellar consciousness of Pisces, you see two fish, they're going back and forth. What does that mean? Well, for one, that means everything is split in two in the age of Pisces, right? So to break everything down, we have good, bad, or evil, good, right, wrong. So everybody's right, everybody's wrong, right? People want to say everything is black and white. Everything is represented as a dichotomy. Like we have to choose, we have to decide. And now we're going into the age of Aquarius, right? So first of all, our split thinking. I wouldn't say it's inaccurate, but what I will say our split thinking does is that it pits us against each other, right? It divides us. And it says if someone has to be right, someone else has to be wrong, right? Dichotomy, right? And if someone has to be right and someone has to be wrong, that means people have to prove a point. That means sometimes people have to go to war. They have to fight each other because they have to prove that they're right in their righteousness. They have to set up shop with their righteousness, right? That's where we get everybody running around conquering different nations, right? Because this nation was wrong or that nation was wrong. And so people have to be put in their place when there's dichotomized thinking. I know I am a Pisces, okay? A lot of my thinking has catered to whether I was right or whether I was wrong, okay? And if I was right or if I was wrong, I had to prove that. That has started a lot of arguments with people, and I've definitely, had to tame my consciousness so that even when I thought that I was right, I didn't discount someone else as wrong. By being a psychic medium or an intuitive person, I learned a new word. That word is accuracy. Now, I'm going to show you something about accuracy. You see that sun right there? And you know how in the Bible it says that Jesus, the Son, walked on water. Now, I just explained to you that the sun is our biggest star and it pretty much dominates most of our consciousness. But then we have our zodiac and our sun sign, which dictates the collective consciousness as well as our individual consciousness. In the age of Pisces, they wrote the Bible, or maybe they wrote the Bible before the age of Pisces, but for the past 2,000 years, the Bible has been the number one book, spiritual book, that people have subscribed to. But when you see something like this, the sun walking on water, and people proclaim that that was some type of miracle or some type of grand feat that Christ performed, All they're talking about, honey, is the sun being the biggest and brightest star in our zodiac. And here we have the sun walking on water. It's walking straight across the water. Doesn't move. That is accuracy, ladies and gentlemen. Accuracy and symbolism, they sometimes play with our mind, because whatever we don't know, whatever we haven't seen, whatever we can't grasp, we are ignorant about. So a lot of people think that a man named Jesus walked on water. This is because the religion of Christianity is a astro-theology religion. It deals with the stars, and it tells the story of the stars. It tells the story of how the stars give us awareness. It tells the story of how the stars dial up our consciousness. And a lot of us have realized certain stars rule over our consciousness. Certain stars draw us in, and we call ourselves star seeds, for that matter. You see how symbolism could be tied into something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we used to live on that star or we came from that star, right? It just means we resonate with the frequency of that star and the awareness, the levels of awareness that that star gives us, okay? A lot of what people call deities are stars. They are astro consciousness, right? What astro consciousness does is it anchors light inside of the realm in which we live. And that's why those frequencies will dictate how much we know, when we know it, because they go on a cycle or a pattern, okay? Now we are going to the age of Aquarius. What does that mean? The age of Aquarius, right, is the age where we open our eyes to the spectrum of humanity. When I say the spectrum, a lot of people don't want to realize that there's more than right and wrong. There's more than good and bad. There is more than evil. There's a whole list. There's a whole plethora of things in between that spectrum. That's where we get our LGBTQ blah 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 letter community, right? Because humans actually run on a spectrum when it comes to sexuality. Everything that our consciousness contains runs on a cycle or a spectrum. So in the age of Aquarius, we will be calming down from the dichotomized thinking, and we will be able to see how all the people in between the left and the right, the duality, okay, they've been ignored all this time. So we are going to be very inclusive now, very tolerant. A lot of jealousies, wars, different things, different emotions that riled up in our soul, they are going to start to simmer down. But right now they're coming to a head, right? So just think, everything duality is at war. It's coming to a head. You got to choose right or left. But as we die down from the Pisces age and awaken to the Aquarius age, then we will have more tolerance and more room for the spectrum of life that we see. And I say that because as a psychic medium, a lot of times before I understood accuracy, I would come to certain conclusions, and then for me, I have to challenge the status quo, right? But now I'm learning, and we all should, with growth, especially as we become more spiritually aware, that Everyone can be accurate. We draw different conclusions with our mind once we put different things together. And we may not draw the same conclusions, right? But we can all be aware of the things that make us come to those conclusions, right? And we can acknowledge that. And we could say this person or that person came to a different conclusion, but that doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It doesn't mean that they're right. It just means that they see things differently. Their perception has changed. And that's what we're dealing with the zodiac. We're dealing with changes in perception, right? And when we're dealing with different zodiac signs, we are dealing with different ways that the light allows people to perceive the world. There's little ducks over there. I think you can see them. I don't know. There they go. See the little duckies? Let's go over there a little closer. But that is why their perception is different, because of astral consciousness and the light that they come through when they're born in the zodiac. That is going to rule the way that they see things, their perception, whether or not they believe a man actually walked on water or whether it was the sun, right? And it's okay either way, because what we do know is that all of the stars have been personified as deities. I told you that earlier. So if the stars and the sun and everything has been deified and made into a man, all we have to do is make it back into a star. It's no big deal, right? All we have to do is understand that someone else drew a different conclusion because of the light inside of them, right? It's okay. It's okay. And I kind of like that Kendrick Lamar song, "We gonna be all right." Nobody has to be right or wrong anymore. Nobody has to be good or bad, right? We just see things on a spectrum. Now, that doesn't mean that people can't hurt people. It doesn't mean that, people can't be mentally ill. It just means that people see things different. They draw a different conclusion from what they perceive. Okay? That is due to the cosmological, they basically rule us, okay? So you have to understand how the stars play a part in this reality, how they influence consciousness. Think of God as a big, bright light at the top of a pole, right? From that top of the pole descends different bubbles of light. Those bubbles of light contain consciousness or God to a certain degree. And at the top of the pole, there's one universe. Then below it, another 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 universe. All of those bubbles of light have fallen down into each universe to allow you to become more aware of that universe. And everything in that universe contains some sort of perception. Even this tree right here. Yes, it's still, it doesn't talk, it doesn't make noise, but it still contains some sort of perception, a perception that allows it to grow from the ground, to grow leaves, to grow stems. Those ducks contain some sort of perception. Even this dirt contains some sort of perception, right? And that is what builds the reality. Perception, as wide as it is, from everything that is around you. Even the grass, even the water has a certain perception, okay? In hoodoo, that's how we identify with magic. We take some of these things, we understand their perception. We understand if the herb is hot, if the herb is cold, and we understand what type of perception a tree has. A lot of people have named things based on their intuitive perception of what the specific thing in nature provides, right? We know that the sun provides us solar power. We can use solar power too to power our homes, to power everything, you know, instead of electricity. So that's another thing that's coming from the age of Aquarius. We will start to learn that we don't just have to use something for one thing or another, but we can expand the use of something based on our perception. That's what magic is, right? So I just wanted to come on for a minute and talk about this and kind of give, look at the ducks, kind of give us more of a background on what it means to be influenced by the zodiac and what it means to be moving over into a new age of consciousness. If you like this video, make sure you click on that like and subscribe button for me. And I hope that you enjoyed it. I'll be going through each zodiac sign and just kind of talking about each thing as we go along, and maybe talking more about the sun, right? Jesus, this is like Jesus, right? Because everybody wants to say Jesus isn't real. No, Jesus isn't real in a certain aspect, okay? But we don't have to draw the same conclusion. We can look at what's in the spectrum of Jesus and kind of take from that. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Peace, beloveds. Peace.